Security's kicking us out of the pool. This is like they're doing the outgrows contest, snorting ants, fucking licking up each other's piss.
Motley Crüe moved 100 million records and packed their vaults with cash. Under the spotlights, the crowd saw blood brothers. Back in the shadows, they fought for every damn dollar. In 2004, Tommy Lee threw the first punch. He walked into court with a stack of papers and slapped a lawsuit on the desk. Those pages could have torn the brand apart from the inside out. The suit smothered the conflict with money and locked the files in a safe. 20 years of dead silence followed. No leaks. Nobody talked. Until tonight. Today, we break the seals on the archive. We pull the files. And we show you exactly what the most expensive betrayal in Mötley Crüe history looked like. In the 80s, Mötley Crüe had LA by the throat. The machine ran like clockwork. 4 street dogs packed stadiums to the concrete rims and loaded cash into armored trucks. They shared hotel rooms, women, and wooden crates of booze. Vince, Nicky, Mick, and Tommy swore they'd die on the same stage. The crowd saw blood brothers, an iron monolith. Magazines plastered their faces on glossy covers, while label execs wired millions into their accounts. Global arenas became their zone of absolute control. Tommy Lee sat behind the kit, hammering the beats straight into the crowd's skulls. After the encores, they sliced their palms and mixed blood over a busted bottle. World tours and platinum records were on the line. The facade was flawless. But backstage, the concrete cracked. The official PR feeds the masses tall tales of addiction and empty needles. But roadies pushing heavy cases down dark hallways heard a different tune. Behind locked dressing room doors, lawyers were splitting checks and carving up percentages. The Brotherhood was reduced to a bank statement. Rumor has it, after one tour, Tommy opened a black folder, scanned the paperwork, and saw the bottom line zeros. The air in the room went dead. The trap snapped shut, and the drummer put his finger on the trigger. In this racket, loyalty doesn't pay a dime. Betrayal cuts checks with 6 zeros. But around here, every word you drop hits the mark. Leave your mark in the comments. Your words are fuel for the channel. If you want to keep riding with us, grab your pass and hit subscribe. That way you won't miss the next case. Now, we head back to the studio and watch how this machine stripped its first thread. In the 90s, the gold vein ran dry. Grunge hit Los Angeles like a freight train and washed stadium glam down the street gutters. Motley Crüe lost Vince Neil and cut a record that blew a crater in the studio budget. That was when Tommy Lee took over the main board. He carried the damn load himself. He slept on the studio couch and spliced recording tape while the rest of them got loaded in bars. The official story says the band was just looking for a new sound, but the techs in the booth saw the real play. Nicky Sixx sat in the leather chair, signing off on every new track. The real money was moving to his side of the table. Tommy Lee stared at those sheets. He built the skeleton of the songs, hammered the rhythm out of plastic and brass, but on paper, his name was in fine print. In this business, trust ends where the books open. The drummer started scrutinizing bank statements. He took the financial reports and traced his finger down the zeroed-out columns. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were lining the pockets of lawyers and managers, while they left him chump change. Rumor has it, at one rehearsal, Tommy hurled heavy gear stands at the brick wall. Then he walked up to Nicky Sixx and spat out words the crew remembered for a long time. "You're draining my blood and selling it in bottles." Just dead air in response. No one whipped out a checkbook. The others simply turned their backs on him and walked out the door. That day, Tommy Lee looked at the empty room and understood exactly where he stood. He was a gear in someone else's machine. This mechanism ground his sweat into their cash. Tommy Lee bolted the door of his dressing room and started collecting papers, receipts, contracts, sheet by sheet into a black folder. In 2004, Tommy Lee stopped knocking on locked doors. He packed his evidence into a leather briefcase and pushed through the courthouse glass. The drummer walked up to the wooden partition and dropped a thick file on the clerk's desk. He brought a stack of papers built to physically dismantle the band. The lawsuit documented a grand-scale heist. The paperwork exposed a web of shell companies and the paper trail of stolen cash. Management and the rest of the band had engineered a closed financial loop. They transferred the trademark and merch rights into their own names. They bled the royalties dry into hidden accounts. Tommy Lee was downgraded to a hired gun. The suit scrubbed his name from the master contracts. Label bosses set up a separate outfit just to skim the nightly box office. At the bottom of that folder sat copies of contracts bearing only 3 signatures. The drummer's ink was missing. For every gig, he caught a standard paycheck, while his partners hauled off bags of cash. These pages proved straight-up theft. There were no tears or empty threats in this filing, just printed spreadsheets. The documents tracked the exact millions the handlers had skimmed from Tommy Lee's register. The drummer demanded to rip open the ledgers for the last 10 years. He wanted independent auditors marching into the band's office. He asked the judge to halt ticket sales and freeze the bank accounts. If the press leaked these pages, the Mötley Crüe empire would hemorrhage its fan base. The crowd paid top dollar for the illusion of family. If they saw this cynical bookkeeping, they'd demand their money back at the box office. Record sales would flatline. The label would eat its investments. Those documents guaranteed a total meltdown for everyone involved. The clerk slammed an ink stamp onto the front page. The case got a docket number. Tommy Lee handed the copies over to the lawyers. He cut off their cash supply. He demanded every stolen dollar back. The drummer hit the kill switch and ground their touring assembly line to a halt. He sat back in the leather chair and stared dead into the eyes of his enemies. The machine kicked on that very second. In this racket, fires like this get put out with wire transfers. The band's handlers snapped open black briefcases and pulled out the checkbooks. They hired men in sharp suits. These fixers walked right into the courthouse and physically pulled the original filings. They locked the pages inside a steel vault. Attorneys pulled witnesses into empty back rooms. They slid NDAs and a plastic pen across the wooden desk. There was only one play on that table. You either put your ink on the dotted line or they scrub your name from the payroll. People took the pen and took the cash. The suits wired lump sums into their accounts and bought stitched lips. Management cut the mics for every reporter sniffing around. PR hacks flooded the papers with fresh shots from the new tour. They buried the lawsuit under printer's ink. The system dropped a concrete slab on the whole thing. If anybody even thought about talking to the press, the lawyers pulled the trigger and zeroed out their bank cards. Blackmail was their heavy caliber. They pulled dirt from the files and tossed old Polaroids onto the desk. Fear kept people staring at the concrete floor. You think these were just standard papers? Then why do the band's lawyers still pay cash to rent those exact boxes in a subterranean vault? In their firm, accidents get erased. They bought the silence and hung heavy padlocks on the doors. Tommy Lee took his wire transfer and clamped his jaw shut for 20 years. The dangerous papers turned to ash. The investigation got a toe tag. For 20 years, the steel safe held the pressure. But in 2023, the lid blew off its metal hinges. Mick Mars walked into the courthouse with his own stack of papers. He slammed a new lawsuit on the wooden desk. In that moment, the hands on the clock stopped dead. These documents spelled out the exact same columns of numbers. The guitarist accused his partners of stealing his cash and scrubbing his name from the contracts. It's a carbon copy of the old blueprints. The same heist, the same bank account. Tommy Lee sits in a studio chair, staring at a glass monitor. He knows the truth. 20 years ago, the drummer held those exact same financial printouts in his hands. He understands every single line in Mick Mars's filing. The system spun him through the exact same centrifuge. When the guitarist pulled the trigger, old ghosts walked out of the locked back rooms. Tommy Lee looks at the new court papers. He keeps his mouth shut, but his old folder just landed back on that desk. You call 2 identical lawsuits a coincidence? In this office, coincidences like that hand down a guilty verdict. The illusion of brotherhood turned into broken glass on a concrete floor. The band's legacy is burning to the ground right inside the courtroom. The reputation laundering machine snapped its steel teeth. Mick Mars brought the gas can. And Tommy Lee knows exactly who lit the match. The Mötley Crüe Brotherhood is nothing but a neon sign on a brick wall. In this racket, the price of fame is always rung up on the cash register. The system feeds the crowd the screams from the stage while it stashes someone else's cash in a safe. Tommy Lee was the first to draw his steel caliber. Today, Mick Mars slapped fresh papers on the desk. Their platinum legacy has permanently turned into a courthouse archive. Now, you're holding the blueprints. Drop down into the comments. Give us a name. Who scrapes the last damn dollars out of the till? Stamp this case with a like and grab your pass to our club. We're already busting the next heavy padlock.